Hey guys, welcome back to my StarCraft 2 weekend. Today we're going to be continuing, of course, the game between MillStephano and SuperNova. This is game 4 between the two players. In game 3, if you've been watching, SuperNova did decide to go for the early on harass, and he did push up two racks build directly in the beginning of the game at the Zernaga Tower in the center of the map. And of course this map is Daybreak, so on the top right corner we do have SuperNova as the blue Terran player, and on the bottom left we do have MillStephano as the white Zerg player. Now the typical scouting is going on, of course. SuperNova trying to go up for that wall, so we do have the supply depot. Finally the probe does decide to move down. I'm going to keep this game a little bit fast because it is a long game, so let's try to get through this as quickly as possible. Probe being chased down by the SCV, and is he going for that second? Yeah, he is going for that second hatchery. Finally did have those 400 resources, so that hatchery drops down. So much, nothing really much is happening. We do have that command center being built right at the edge. This is pretty standard for some of the Terran players, as they are a little bit worried maybe that early on harassed by those Zerglings will get a couple of pot shots off and stop that production for that command center here. So that's why that happened. A little bit of harass as always by MillStephano, another SCV being pulled off the line. Even small things as this do get that economy just a little bit behind the opponent. So small harasses like this are pretty useful, especially in early on in the game. You do get that advantage in the beginning of the game. So as long as this is completed, and that should pretty much be it. Once that first Marine pops out, so that should pretty much be it. So we do have a scout out, of course, by the SCV by SuperNova, and second hatchery has been complete. So finally that command center is going to be morphing, and it's going to be moved down, of course, to that second base position. And this pretty much, of course, is going to give MillStephano second lead. But once that command center does have that mule and upgrade for the orbital command, really those resources do come back to SuperNova, and SuperNova will have a lead with that second base. So far you can say SuperNova is, in terms of resources, a little bit ahead. As you can see, he does have more resources, especially with those mules. That Zergling is going to be pushed back, as he did try to scout out with that Zergling. Is he going to go in for a third base directly, or no? We do have the queens, of course, throwing down as many larvae as possible, and of course expanding that Crete as well. So far, let's go down to our production tab. We do have a couple of Hellions, so we do have early on Hellion harass. Let's slow it down just a little bit from now on. Is he going for that Hellion harass or not? So we do have that tech lab, so it's going to be a Banshee, early Hellion, Banshee harass. So this is pretty effective against the Zerg players early on in the game. So let's see if it's going to be really worthwhile. So here we do have finally 4 Hellions, so the 4 Hellions should be moving out, and they are going to be moving in. That Queen's going to be causing just a little bit of damage. They're going to be skipping roaches here to counter those Hellions, and that should pretty much call this Hellion harass end game for SuperNova. 4 Hellions are pretty much going to be able to not take especially this many roaches. Now we do have 7 roaches into play. These Hellions are going to drop very quickly with these roaches, and the Hellions of course do have that speed advantage, but that's all. So Hellion harass is the end of the Hellion harass for SuperNova. Now those Banshees into play, we do have those Banshees as well, and we do have that cloak research. So the moment he sees that, we should have a couple of spores being created as well in the base. So we do have creep tumors, we do have the hatchery, of course, the third base coming down for the hatchery. Here come those roaches. Roaches are going to be going up against that bunker. Not really much, and really a waste of resources for Stephano. Stephano now retreating with those roaches. They are going to be pretty much taken out by this Banshee. So the Banshee should hopefully drop another one. We do have the 1-1 upgrades, of course, for MillStephano. Cloak research nearly complete, so we could maybe start off a little bit early on harass. We do have another Banshee in play, and that's pretty much it. The third command center is being built somewhere. Yeah, we do have, where's that third command center? Here it is. Third command center is being built. We do have more Banshees in play, and still sticking with that Hellion harass. So it's really interesting to see if it's going to be very effective. Here come those 4 Hellions and that Banshee going for that third hatchery. He's going to be able to drop that third hatchery. It's key to keep that Zerg player not being able to expand, because once that Zerg player gets those 3-4 bases, it is very difficult, and these Banshees are really going to provide that cover fire that he does need. And here comes the cloak, of course. That Overseer is going to pretty much unveil those Banshees, and they're going to be taken out by those 3 queens that he did move in. More Hellions moved into play. So he is charging directly for that production line. He's going to skip as much as possible. He's moving directly for the main base, the most saturated base, and he's going to be trying to drop as many as possible. Here comes the frying, and another drone, more drones drop. He's trying to really get as many drones as possible to kill off the actual production tab. Very nice play by SuperNova. He is just focusing on those actual drones. Even though he is sacrificing those Hellions, he doesn't care. he really needs to get the production tab down. So Overseer, of course, moved to the edge to prevent any more of this Banshee harass. Even though it's cloaked Banshee harass, he should have uncloaked it, and he's moving in again. He's probably going to try for another harass. So far we do have more upgrades coming on for MillStephano, and here comes the scan, and he did uncloak, or actually the energy did finish for that Banshee. So the Banshee is being, of course, stayed there. He could have maybe even taken out this Queen if he did move back up, but unfortunately he doesn't know that the Queen is there. And we do have finally a couple of Zerglings chasing down that Hellion. That Hellion didn't manage to escape, and that Hellion dropped. We do have finally armor level 1 and weapons level 1. Thor's coming online, so he is finally switching to mech. So we should have a mech, Banshee, and a Hellion push by Supernova, while MillStephano is going for Zerglings and Roaches. So now we do have 2 Banshees, and this should pretty much pack a punch. I'm not sure if he's actually going for that air level 1 upgrades. He really does need it if he is concentrating on for that air attack. So he's moving forward now. Do we finally have a scan coming down, of course, to prevent that creep tumor from spreading? So of course those queens being moved into play. If he does actually manage to throw down a cloak, he could be able to take out these queens as well. But really, let's see exactly what Supernova decides to do. So he's finally deciding to retreat a bit. Third base is coming online as well. Third base, of course, saturated by MillStephano. If we look at the resources, MillStephano, of course, a little bit ahead with those crystals due to the actual mules that he has into play. The units lost so far, of course. Supernova seems to be on the losing end. Sorry, MillStephano seems to be on the losing end with 26 units in comparison, but otherwise, resource-wise, Supernova, of course, did use more resources, especially with those Hellions. He did sacrifice those Hellions to get those drones killed, but Viking finally into play. We do have, again, another command center, so that command center might be used as a planetary, but time will tell. Let's see exactly what's going to be happening here. We do finally have a switch into mechs, as we can see, and we do finally have that Raven coming into play, so he could be scanning out Siege, of course. Siege tank research coming online as well, so we're going to have some tanks, of course, being thrown out, a couple of infestors. We do have 5 infestors being produced, so this is really a sort of pause between both the players as they both drone up and tech up and get those secondary units moved in. Of course, these Hellions did scat out that fourth hatcheries into play. Very nice fungal place down, and that's it by those Hellions. Those Hellions did manage to drop a small little harass by these Roaches. They might take out a few, but these Banshees should be more than enough to prevent that from happening. Again, we do have another command center being placed down. I do believe he's converting these into planetaries, so it's really interesting to see if he's going to be using command center as planetary fortresses, as actual fortifications to reinforce his actual fortifications. We do have level 2 for weapons. And did we see that Great Spire? No, we don't. We have newer paralysis coming online. That fourth hatchery is, of course, coming online as well. So here, what was the meaning of that? I don't know why he attacked his own command center just for that split second. It was beyond me why he did that, but who knows. Let's see if he's going to be using these for actual planetary upgrades. So far, nothing really much happening between both players. The creep tumor is spreading very, very aggressively, so yes, that Raven did provide, of course, that scan. He didn't manage to kill that off nearly, though. He did decide to retreat. He is a little bit nervous. He's not sure exactly what to expect. Do we have another command center here? Yes, he is making a wall off, I do believe, by planetary command centers. So very smart play by oGsSuperNova. He maybe needs to throw down another supply depot here to properly wall it off and use these orbital commands. Actually, he is making them to produce some more mules. He's not using them to actually as wall-offs for command centers. Of course, a couple of Roaches going to be pushing down that. Look at the production tab, seriously, by both players. It's really huge, especially the Terran production tab is really, really big right now. We do have a couple of Roaches that are going to be pretty much taken out by those Thors and those Hellions. So that's pretty much it. Tanks, of course, moving down, and we do have 4 Ultralisks, of course, coming into play, so this should pretty much counteract 32 Zerglings now, so he does know that something's coming, and the production tab is starting to increase in terms of units for both players. We do have finally 200 to 200, so both players are pretty much maxed out in supply in terms of being able to produce the maximum amount of supply. So here come those very nice fungal placement for both of those. They're gonna drop. Very, very, very miss micro. He should have cloaked them before moving forward, but then we did have those overseers, so that pretty much didn't do anything for him at all. So 3 overseers are very, very good. 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 3 thing for MillStephano to keep those Banshees at bay, especially when they cloak. So it's really nice that he has it. Of course, he did place down a where is that? Where is that? It's got to be somewhere here. He did place down that. He is placing down those missile towers all around the place, as he is expecting that something might be coming. Zerglings are going to pretty much surround these Thors. Thors moving down to the siege line. Of course, siege line, very nice fungal place down by those infestors. Both the Thors drop a lot of resources drops. Look at these ultralisks. So this is the main actual force by MillStephano moving forward. Again, more infested Terrans being placed down all around the map. And these infested Terrans should pretty much drop, and a very nice harass, I would say, a very effective harass by MillStephano. Those overseers are of course going to provide cover for those cloaked Banshees, so we should be a little bit careful. Yes, here we do have that sensor tower. Sensor tower will pretty much pick off anything. Very nice placement for the sensor tower. As you can see, it does cover really all the actual sides. So far, the advantages for MillStephano is it does have a creep tumor spread out, you could say 2/3 of the map in comparison to Supernova. So anyways, finally 2 Spires coming online, so hopefully he is going to be switching to a couple of Mutalisks, so maybe some Broodlings, so really time will tell. We do have that planetary fortress here. It could be repaired though. Why he doesn't repair it is beyond me. More tanks moving down, so he is really trying to get that siege tank up and online. He should pretty much drop hopefully all of these creep tumors without any counter, and we do finally have that 4th base moved up, being built, actually 4th hatchery being built by both players. More planetaries being completed, so we do have another planetary here and another planetary here. Hopefully he should be starting that planetary there as well. So this is just to reinforce his actual position. He is trying to hold off, again, both the hatcheries being dropped. So really MillStephano is going to have a resource advantage here, and he knows that. So Supernova really has to take out these hatcheries. So far MillStephano is going to have an advantage in terms of resources, so he really has to counteract this in some way or another. We do have, of course, more Thors coming online. That planetary fortress, that being this one, is starting, and we do have another command center. Now he is finally deciding to move out, and here comes the push by Supernova. He really needs to get those tanks sieged up. If MillStephano decides to move, he does place that scan, so he knows that those units are moving away, so he doesn't have to worry about getting those tanks sieged up. Is he going to try to flank? He's not going to try to flank. This destructible debris could have been taken out. He is actually, this might be going for a base trade, so interesting to see. Will he actually be able to drop this before he actually moves back? Yes, he will. And a couple of siege tanks here, 1 siege tank here should pretty much actually hopefully counteract this push. And yes, this push comes to an end. That's it pretty much for, it was base trade. We did have 1 actual base for each player, but so far it is looking for Supernova up, as he did manage to take out an actual production production line for MillStephano out. So far this is really an advantage for Supernova, as he did manage to take out one of those bases that are really producing, or we're going to be giving those resources, those life-saving resources for MillStephano. But he still has 1 base up for Supernova, so Supernova really has to take care of this one as well. Of course, we do have a couple of spine callers, I do believe he has to get thrown down to make sure that he doesn't lose that base as well. So far it is pretty much equal for both the players in terms of bases, how many he can produce. So here comes the main force of MillStephano. He is a little bit nervous, so he's moving around to try to prevent this harass. Very nice 3 Hellions did sneak in, so they will really fry a lot of, hopefully a lot of those drones before they drop. Again, all these small harasses are very effective. We do have, of course, Corruptors online, and he really has nothing to counteract these Corruptors. Once those Corruptors come online for the Zerg player, it is very difficult for a Terran player to somehow counteract these Corruptors. He really needs to produce a lot of Vikings, and 3 Vikings with that many Corruptors, there's nothing really much he can do. Supernova now at the supply max at 199, so there's really nothing he can do currently except just take out as many, maybe send in a couple of SCVs to their death, as he does have a lot, as you can see, a lot of sensor towers being placed down, a lot of air turrets being placed down. He is really switching in. He is expecting that there is going to be an air force coming, and he is switching into that. And here comes the force, here come those Corruptors. Those Vikings are going to be counteracting those Corruptors, of course, so those turrets as well, providing a little bit of covered fire. And finally, will that push be moving forward? These siege tanks very nicely spread. A couple of infested Terrans should hopefully drop. Vikings being pushing forward, Corruptors dropping. Very nice play. Broodlings moving forward. Infested Terrans pop, and those infested Terrans are going to take out the siege tank line, giving an advantage to MillStephano. MillStephano with a supply block right now, so really there is an advantage for Supernova. Supernova really needs to push out as quickly as possible. There's just 1 overseer in play. He did lift that command center, and that's pretty much it. We do have 2 center towers on both sides, so that should pretty much show you what he has. So this is really strategy-wise. He needs more siege tanks online. He needs more of that siege tank line. Once that siege tank line is there and ready, so that should pretty much be it. So this will actually be a sort of equal battle for both players. It's just a matter of nerves on who. If you can take out this Overseer, this would be very key. Overseer drops. Now we can move in with Skulk Banshees. This is very key. This is an advantage. Of course, very nice fungals. Did manage to get all those Vikings, but that's pretty much it. And this is really equaled out. Of course, that siege line still providing a lot of cover fire. Those Thors as well. That last Thor dropped, and those Corruptors moving forward. But those, of course, Banshees are pretty much going to drop the rest of those units. He does manage to borrow the units and run away. Of course, Corruptor does move in to try to push back that actual aggression for those units, and those Corruptors, as you can see, more actual missile turrets being built as quickly as possible by SuperNova. This is a very nice play, a push and pull by both players. We do have 16 more Corruptors coming on. He knows that air superiority is key in winning this battle. We do finally have those ship and weapons for those air units coming online, research, and of course the same thing happening with those 2-2 upgrades for MillStephano. So this is pretty much it. We do have a scan coming down here. He really needs to take down the production tab, the production line of both those players. We do have those 16 Corruptors. Really, I don't know if he has anything to counteract these 16 Corruptors. If he has a lot of those missile turrets, that might help him out a bit. With 16 Corruptors, that is a very, very high amount of Corruptors. So really it is coming down to this. If he'll be able to manage to take out this many Corruptors, if he can get down at least 1 planetary, maybe 2 planetary fortresses here, that would hopefully help him out quite a bit. I know those Overseers are going to move forward with the amount of Corruptors. He's going to be forced to push back, and that planetary fortress, of course, trying to get down as much damage as possible. Very nice play by SuperNova. This game did come up to SuperNova, managed to cancel that second, or you could say, additional command center being built for that planetary, and a very nice fungal placement. Those Vikings are pretty much going to drop a scan, and of course those missile turrets are shooting away, and that's pretty much it for this push. Broodlings moving forward, but that siege tank is pretty much going to stop that push, and those Corruptors are going to drop, and unfortunately this many Corruptors, finally those 16 Corruptors got into production, and all of those Vikings are going to drop. Look at the amount of infested Terrans with all of those infestors that they did manage to drop. Of course, air superiority now coming down to MillStephano. So MillStephano one up on this actual battle itself. He then needs to at least put down 2 command centers and build up them into planetaries to be able to push in any whatsoever way. We do have, of course, more broodlings being morphed into the game, and that's pretty much it that is happening. He's not even bothering to rebuild the actual missile turrets. He needs more missile turrets. He needs more tanks to be able to keep off this push. We do have those spore crawlers being moved in. This is really key for MillStephano to prevent any of those Vikings into play, and he sees this happening, so there's nothing really much he can do but being able to move in. Of course, another fungal being placed down for those Thors. Maybe an SCV being pulled off the line to start repairing that wouldn't be a bad idea, but here come those infested Terrans, and here come those broodlings. So this is really not backed up by those siege tanks, are going to force the loss of all these Thors. Really what a waste for the loss of these Thors. There's really no point in losing all these Thors. There's really nothing much he can do. We do have finally that plate level 2 coming online. Broodlings moving forward, really producing a lot of damage. He really needs that covered fire by those siege tanks. There's nothing much he can do. There's a lot of infested turns being moved forward. That, of course, Planetary is trying to produce. Those Thors are going to drop. There's nothing much he can do. Infested turns with those broodlings. That's pretty much it for SuperNova, and this is really the end for SuperNova. That planetary is going to drop, and this battle did go down to MillStephano. Nothing really happening on this end. It wouldn't hurt to maybe pull off a couple of Hellions and try to harass the production tab. We do have, it is really going on. All the bases are harvested out. Of course, that base did drop as expected, so I don't know why he's moving forward with those 2 Thors. He is going to lose that production tab. He should move back, try to make another line, another defense line. Vikings being moved in, and there's nothing really much he can do. Hatchery is trying to be placed down, so he's trying to get that base push, and yes, it is going to be placed down, so he's going to gain that as well. Finally, we have the level 3 upgrades for the weapons, and also level 3 attack upgrades for MillStephano. So MillStephano, in terms of upgrades, being a little bit ahead. As you can see, he is having those 3 upgrades, and 3 upgrades, of course, for SuperNova as well. So it is really equal. He really needs to push a little bit differently. He really needs to get an upper hand somewhere else. It's very unfortunate he did lose this base, and as you can see, he did sort of decide that he is going for that base now. He knows something's up. MillStephano knows something's up, and he is moving up for that base. Of course, the scan did come down. He's going to be taking out all these units. Unfortunately, the Broodlings are a little bit slow, but by the time they do get there, the scan comes down. He knows that the units are coming. So, unfortunately, the siege, he doesn't have enough tanks, so this is pretty much going to be mopped up for SuperNova. There's nothing really he can do. Fungus are going to be placed down. Of course, the Broodlings are going to provide that support fire. Very sloppy play by SuperNova. He's going to lose a lot of these swords, really for no reason whatsoever. He really did need more tanks. There's nothing much he can do, especially against this many Corruptors and this many Broodlings and Infestors. He really needs that siege tank line, and if he doesn't have that siege tank line, he can't really prevent those Broodlings and those Infestors from moving forward, or those Infested Terrans that are going to be thrown out. So not really at a great advantage here. He's going to maybe provide a little bit of harass, but nothing much he can do. Forcing the actual army to split might be his advantage here, so it's really interesting to see how exactly he's going to be playing with this. So he's doing a little bit of kiting. He's trying to get him into the actual missile turret range, but that's pretty much it. But MillStephano decides to rejoin the actual units again. So he is again going for that harass. He's really persistent. He's really making sure he can take out, and he should be able to take out a lot of these units before the actual army gets here. Scan being placed down. Finally a couple of siege tanks, but not enough. This is again gonna be mopped up really for no reason whatsoever though. But Fungus, of course, being placed down for the Thors. Will he be able to take out a couple of those Corruptors before they actually move away? Broodlings, of course, retreating. He does manage to take out a little bit, but that's pretty much it. Will he be able to drop the space? This would be key to drop the space, actually. It would give him an advantage. We'd have 36 Broodlings coming along. Stick at the units lost. We'd have 44,000 to 42. Of course, MillStephano losing more units, but as Zerg player, this is expected. Units lost 504 in comparison to 500 to 213. So it is a really nice play by both the players. It is a push and pull game so far. So he is persisting on staying with those Thors. Not really a lot of tanks. Thors and Vikings and Hellion build by SuperNova, and we do have Stephano with those Zerglings, Broodlings, and Corruptor and Infestor build. So is he going to be going down for that base again? Yes, he is. He's deciding he's going to be just targeting these side bases for... Finally, that siege tank is finally providing a little bit of cover fire, and that should pretty much be it. The amount of Corruptors are pretty much going to mop up these Zerglings, these Vikings, and once the Broodlings come online, these Thors are going to drop. He really needs to have a tank line to be able to counteract these Broodlings from the actual Broodlords, but there's nothing much he can do. Finally, those Vikings come into play. Of course, Corruptors are moving forward, and those missile turrets are going to be starting to drop very, very quickly. And of course, a missile tower drops. Sensor tower just about to drop. If you can keep that sensor tower up and alive, it'll provide him very key advantages in terms of his movement. So he should really repair that sensor tower. It'd be a waste if he actually loses that sensor tower. If you can repair that sensor tower, it would be very key to keeping an advantage. Unfortunately, sensor tower drops, so he loses that advantage in terms of being able to see what he can and cannot see. The movement, the army movement by MillStephano is really now to his advantage. Will he rebuild that sensor tower? No, he's not. He is reinforcing with more Thors, more Vikings. That's pretty much it. He needs to counteract this ground force. He needs to counteract the ground force. There's nothing he can do with just Thors and just the Vikings. He either needs to switch into Marines or somehow counteract the ground force. He needs maybe a lot of Marines and a lot of Marauders, or he needs to start building up siege tanks to counteract the ground force by the Broodlings and by the Infested Terrans. But there's nothing much you can do. These Thors are pretty much going to drop, especially with the surround by the Zerglings. And they have been upgraded to 3-3 if I'm not mistaken. So now that's it for these Thors, and another scan being placed down. Really, that the actual army for both the players has been strained to the dear end here. There's nothing really much that he can do. So the question is, will he actually move forward? He needs to take out the actual... He doesn't have enough to counteract the actual ground attacks. Another harass happening here. Of course, he did manage to take out a couple of these drones. He really needs to take out more of these bases. Maybe a couple of more harasses. This base has dropped, so he does have an advantage here. And will he actually be going for that base again? Yes, he will. Unfortunately, he didn't have anything placed there. He could have placed the planetary here just for the sake of placing it there to prevent that push. And here comes that push by MillStephano, even though that is a very small push, but a very effective one. As SuperNova really has nothing to counteract this actual push. So let's see what's going to be happening here. A lot of Corruptors into play, and there's nothing really he can do. We have no ground units for any of the players, so he is being forced. This base is pretty much harvested out, so there's nothing much he can lose. Of course, only the Vespene gas, that important Vespene gas, which he is going to lose. And look at the amount of corruptors. This is ridiculous. Just take a look at the units. We do have 19 corruptors, 4 infestors, and we do have 5 broodlords in comparison to just 3 Vikings. So really there's no units at all, and there's no production tab at all for SuperNova, so I'm really confused exactly what SuperNova is doing. He is trying to hold out for Diran, as there are no more resources for SuperNova, while Stephano has a lot of these resources. So this is it, literally, for SuperNova. He has no more resources. He can't build anything. There's nothing much he can do. The only actual defense he has are those planetary fortresses. And as you can see, MillStephano already has 2 more bases, and he is pretty much harvesting those crystals, and he has enough actual crystals to get into play again. So this is it for SuperNova. It's not really that he got outplayed, he got outplayed in the fact that he got the bases. He got more bases lost in terms of MillStephano. MillStephano has the strategic advantage of having those bases that actually have those resources left, and SuperNova knows that, and he calls it a good game. And this is it for the last game between these 2 players. This was a very, very interesting game, even though SuperNova did counteract these corruptors and infestors and that actual army of MillStephano. Unfortunately, he didn't think long-term, and long-term those resources did run out for SuperNova, and MillStephano did turn out on the upper side, as he did manage to get those last bases with those key resources, that being the center bases, that being this one and this one as well. These were the only crystals left on the map, and MillStephano did get that and managed to produce, of course, those units that he just needed to push off that last push by SuperNova. Well, this is it. Happy gaming, and see you guys in another gameplay. Bye.